Welcome to the Mom Owned and Operated Podcast, the podcast about moms and for moms, where we have candid conversations about running a business, raising a family, and remembering ourselves. I'm your host, Rita Suzanne, a single mom of four, digital strategist, and provider of no-nonsense business strategies and tactics. Hi, I'm Rita Suzanne, and today I have my guest Stephanie with me. Stephanie, I'm so excited to chat with you. Please tell everyone all about you, your family, and your business.
Yes, thank you for having me, Rita. I am Stephanie. I'm a sex, love, and relationship coach. I got certified in 2020, so I've been doing it for 4 years now, and I have 3 girls and a partner. My youngest turned 2 on the weekend. The other 2 are going to be 6 and 10 in July. And yeah, here I am navigating my coaching business and running a family.
Wow. What led you to this type of coaching?
It's a great question. And I get it all the time. And I don't have a firm, direct, oh, this and this and this. I think I'm just the kind of person who follows my interests, follows my nose and then see where that takes me. So I guess after my second girl was born, I didn't really have a career on the go. And at that time, I was like, oh, maybe, what would be really kind of a good fit for me is being a therapist. I thought I'd go back to school to be a therapist. So I kind of wavered about that. And I kept coming across Layla Martin's certification program. And that's who I got certified with. She had been in my world for many years. I loved binging her YouTube content. And so she developed a certification in sex, love, and relationships. And I would see it come up every year for several years in my inbox. And then that particular year, I guess, 2 things kind of went together. I'm like, oh, what if I try this, see if it's in the world of what I like doing and go from there. It was really we'll go from there. I thought about, oh, maybe I'll go to school after that to become a therapist. But in the certification process, a year-long program, the first third of it is all self-development work. So we don't even start to get to the coaching methodology. And I love that. I was like, oh, there's so much I'm learning about myself. And even at that point, I wasn't even sure I was going to continue on as a coach. I just loved learning about my sexuality and my sex life and my relationships and all of the Tantra and Taoist philosophy I was learning. I was like, this is all new and I'm loving it. And I still didn't know if I was going to coach. But then once the coaching methodology was taught, I'm like, oh, this is very cool. I'd love to bring this to more people.
Well, tell us, what does a sex, love, and relationship coach do? What do you do? Do you work with couples? Do you work with individuals? What do you do?
So I could have gotten my extra major in couples work, and I started it, but then I realized I actually do want to focus on individual work. So I work with individuals. I focus on women, even though I do have male clients, and I did do my male certification, men's sexuality for certification. But I help individuals. My real passion is helping women claim radical self-responsibility for their life, yes, but for their pleasure and for their sex life and for their relationships. And it's really easy to offload responsibility to oh, well, he's not doing this, or well, I never got this opportunity, or I never learned about sex or sex ed. So it's really claiming that responsibility and giving and really empowering women to find their sexuality, find their pleasure. So that's what I feel passionate about. And how we go about doing that is in session. There's a lot of really great tools that I'll do. It's all talking, but there are practices that I can either guide through with camera and sound off, or I can give as homework or home play. And those are self-pleasure, guided self-pleasure practices, very specific practices, all based in Tantra and Taoism, mostly, I would say. And those really help you explore and uncover and even like heal some things that have become stagnated in your body, or just beliefs or conditioning that you were like assumed as you grew up.
Hmm. So who is then like your ideal client? Like who comes to you for this type of work?
For this type of work, I would say generally women over 30, even though, like I said, I have men, but women over 30. And I really feel passionate about working with moms, because it's so easy to put ourselves in second, third, fourth, fifth place. And so I feel I do have moms that I work with that we help find their libido again. We help find their, their own desires and passions again.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just too easy. It's just too easy to get put to the side. And it might not look like somebody who doesn't have kids. Like it doesn't look the same. And that's great. Like it's not going to look the same. So like, let's make our days, let's make our weeks look and feel the way, like just a little bit more how we want them to feel.
Yeah, I find a lot of moms and women, they don't really want to speak up, especially maybe a little bit more mature, don't want to speak up for the things that they want when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to sex, love, and relationships,
Mm-hmm.
just for fear of maybe what the other person might think or say or do.
What they might think, say, or do. And even deeper than that, it's like fear of rupture, fear of
Mm,
tension, fear, and then what that might lead to, which is fear of abandonment, fear of being outcast, fear of being alone. Like, so yeah, it is really difficult to speak up. And that we work a lot on. I work a lot with women on feeling safe enough and secure enough to speak up.
I actually know a couple of women who've actually yeah, I don't know if I want to tell. I don't know if I want to tell that story. um, who have been married for many many years, who've never experienced pleasure with their spouse. Is that something that you've um, come across as well?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so common. And that's the thing, like you were just about to censor yourself because nobody wants to talk about it. And I really want to
I didn't want to out them.
destigmatize that. No, absolutely. No, no, definitely not that. But like even to talk about that topic, it feels embarrassing for some women to, admit they've never experienced an orgasm, or that
Mm,
they rarely want to have sex, be having the sex they're having, or rarely experience pleasure. And so where I would start with a client who is experiencing that is it's all self work. You don't even have to worry like about bringing this to your partner at that point. It's like it's you and your body and your pleasure, and we're going to start from there, and we're going to slowly learn, explore, build all of the things that are available to you. They actually are available to you. And when that starts to feel good and confident and expansive, then we would start to bring it to the relationship portion. But like jumping into that piece can feel too overwhelming, and like that's where you go, not happening. I'm not going to do anything about it.
yeah, because I would think that it would probably be scary to even bring anything like that up to your partner. Even once you start to feel comfortable, I guess, with your own body, to then even broach that
Mm-hmm.
subject with him. But I guess that's why you hire someone like you to help you with like these different tactics and strategies,
Mm-hmm.
so that you are more comfortable and confident in approaching the situation.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah, yeah. And once you start to feel the things that turn you on, the things that you find pleasure in, you like that builds self-esteem and confidence. And so then you're going to be at a different, once you start doing this work, you're going to be at a different place than you are now. So this, the scariness, the fear of bringing it to the partner is going to feel different once you're at that new place of self knowing.
They might notice, that partner might notice something has changed too.
That's
Probably.
right. Exactly. Once you change, this is, Esther Perel says this, once you change one part of the system, two people are in a system together, right? And so once you start changing one part of the system, the other one's going to notice and change and have to adapt and like, so yeah, it's a real thing. That's why I really feel passionate about radical self-responsibility, because first of all, you are only responsible for your own self. You can't change anybody else. And once you do begin changing you, and you begin inspiring, you begin like people will notice that and have to change to you and like react to you in a different way. So yeah.
So do you only work with people like in one-to-one sessions, or do you do like, you have a group program or anything like that?
Right now I do one-to-ones, and I have a group program, which I'm going to actually turn into a self-paced program. I did it live once. I'm going to turn it into a self-paced program with maybe a live component. But I have just launched my mother's mastermind, which I'm calling a mistress mind, because the feminine form of master is mistress, and I like that better. So a sex, love, and relationship mistress mind, where six of us are going to go on a deep dive together for 6 months. Weekly calls, daily contact, working on your own specific goals, desires, challenges, but in a group format.
I love stuff like that in a group, because then you feel even more support than you would if it was just one person, and you start to realize like, maybe it's not just, I'm not the oddball.
I'm not alone. Yes. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday about this, how, man, just starting to talk about these like really sensitive things out loud. And then another person is like, oh my God, I feel the same. Like, not just knowing that you're in community with people who feel the same or have experienced the same in the past or are going through the same now, or it just does feel different. And I firmly support that and believe in group formats.
Yeah. So how is it like juggling a business with your 3 little ones running around, especially with these kind of more sensitive topics?
Yeah. I don't know yet, Rita. No. It's all developing. It's all unfolding. What I do now, I have a lot of help. So I have a partner. I have my mom available to me. She started helping me about a year ago, coming into 1 to 3 times a week. So hands down, like, help is the way. I have family around. I try not to overschedule my days so that I do have the spaciousness to be, with the girls when they are home. Even that time, I'm like, sometimes I need to just lock myself in a bedroom and be on my own. But it's really important to schedule those things. Like, it's really important to block those things out and stick to it. The things that you need for yourself, and scheduling help when like in any way you can. Like, the teenager down the street can like watch the kids upstairs for an hour. So I would say that's my answer, is help.
Well, just based on your story, it didn't sound like your instant thought, like when you started this all, was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. This is going to be like my business. I'm going to start this thing and I'm going to have my kids at home. And so it's just interesting to see how it's kind of evolved into its own business for you.
That's kind of, I was reflecting on that this week, and I'm like, oh, that's just kind of how my life has gone. I have rarely like set like a plan, like stated a plan and then followed it through in that traditional way. So yeah, but I did always know, since being very young, I knew that I wasn't really going to work for somebody. that just wasn't in my being. Like that just wasn't a part of my, I just knew that, but I never knew what the thing was that I was going to do. So that is true.
It's interesting that you say that because I always felt like for myself that I wasn't an employee.
Hmm.
And I started my first business when I was, I think I was 19. And I did work in corporate when I moved to California. So I did work in corporate for a while, but you have to when you live out there. There's really no choice.
Mm.
But
Hmm.
this business is my third business because I always knew that I wanted to be my own boss, right? Like I always was seeking out time and financial freedom. And it was once I had my kids that it was almost like do or die for me, where it was like,
Mm.
you have to figure this out. You
Yeah.
have to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to
Like
make this happen because I'm
I
not
was
doing the other version. Yeah.
right. I was so miserable dropping my kids. I went through 5 years of infertility just to have my son. And so, dropping them off at daycare, I was
Mm.
so miserable, because I wanted to be home with him so badly. And so that's when I was, up against the wall of like, what am I going to do? Right. I have to figure this out.
Do you feel like when like interviewing all these moms with businesses, is that like a main motivation for many or most moms is that I wanted to be there with my kids more?
A lot of them for sure is definitely wanting to be home with their kids. And you know what I love now is seeing is when I first started, I started my business 10 years ago. And I always tell this story about how there was always, even though we all knew that we were home with our kids, right? We all knew that we were running our businesses at home with our kids. We would try to give the perception that we were not. We were professionals. We were at work.
Uh,
We were,
uh-huh.
we were still
Uh-huh.
trying to give that professional
Huh.
appearance. And but then once COVID hit and everybody started working, like it became more known that everybody was working at home, it became more common and more acceptable now for everyone to be like, yes, I'm working at home with my kids,
Right.
you
Right, right, right,
know.
right. Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
whereas before it was not as accepted or as known.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a very interesting slight pivot. And I love that. I love that for us, that
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It feels
it's
more
more.
integrated. It feels more honest.
Yeah. Like my kids, I remember being in this very huge Facebook group and doing a presentation. And, of course, I had told my kids to stay out of the room. I was doing this thing and I gave the presentation. Everything went great. And then when I was done, my kids ran in the room all behind me. They were jumping, screaming, and yelling. I was mortified. Okay. Now, it was a group of entrepreneurs. It wasn't as if it was a group of like business women,
Yeah. Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
like corporate people.
yeah.
But I was mortified, right? Because again, we needed to give that perception of it being professional. But everybody was like, oh my God, they're so cute. They're so adorable. And it
Yeah.
was in that moment where I was like, oh, okay, it's not as bad as I
This is
had.
more acceptable than I had believed
Right.
it to be. Yeah.
And that was in the beginning. That was probably 2016. It wasn't even
Yeah.
that far away, but it just felt, it still felt separate. But I like to use that as a separate story. So if another mom came to you and she was just like, well, I'm thinking of starting my own business, what kind of advice would you give her? What would you tell her?
Hmm. I would ask her why she wants to.
Like, are you
And
crazy?
then because it's true, like if you don't want to be an employee, like that's like there's no option. So it's like if that's in your being, then and you know that, then yes, this is the right path. And then I would say advice. Line up help, like get as much in place as you can to create those um like lengths of time to be in the flow of whatever work you do. And then once that that block is over, then you know it's over, and then you can go back to mothering or parenting. But have a consistent schedule in place where you know you have this chunk of time available to you for that purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I remember one of my first interviews that I did, it was a written interview, and I was just so impressed by her because she had just started her business and it was a subscription service, but she had mentioned how, just from the jump, she had set up childcare straight away. And I thought, that's fancy. Shit, I couldn't afford just to set up. I was definitely bootstrapping from the beginning. I mean, when you talk about minimal, viability, I mean, we're talking, my budget was probably $100 a month, if that, for expenses. So I couldn't afford to do any childcare, but if I would have been able to, that would have been something that I would have definitely loved to do. And I would highly recommend it for anybody who could definitely put that in place right away, because it does alleviate a lot of it, because it's hard to do both things at one time.
It just is. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, the child, my son was 4 years old, and he wanted my attention.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to think at the same time about kid stuff and work at the, simultaneously. So yeah, it was definitely a challenge. So let's talk a little bit about one of my favorite things, which is self-care. What are you doing for yourself, Stephanie? What are you, we talked about a little bit, you talked about how easy it is for moms to kind of neglect themselves. Outside of kind of getting to know your body a lot. What are you doing for yourself?
So being a sex coach, and having the embodied experience of what it does for me, I like to prioritize self-pleasure practices. When do I do that? People are like, okay, when do you do that? In the afternoon, not even like sometimes it'll fall away for many, weeks, but in the afternoon when the little one's napping, I go to my bedroom and I have time then. That's prime time for me. Nighttime, no, I'm not doing anything. when those kids are in bed, I shut off. Like I self-care at that time can look like scrolling. It can look like watching TV. It can look like sketching or drawing. Sometimes I'll take a bath, but self-pleasure practices at least once a week, just to like stay connected to my pleasure and my body, but if not more. And I really think that slowing down is such an act of self-care. So like if I'm having my coffee in the morning and I take, like, it's mindfulness, right? But it's like taking the time to like taste how good this coffee is, take the time to just be there with my thoughts and not do anything else. That's an act of self-care for me, which I'm practicing more and more. And I'm noticing, even when I'm like busy with the kids, slowing down, oh my God, it does so much for my nervous system. It does so much for actually lengthening time. I'm like, I think I have to rush all the time to get everything done. And it's just not true. This is just like a new thing for me. So I'm just talking about it as it's fresh, but like I'm realizing, oh no, slowing down actually slows time down in a weird, strange way. And so like spending half an hour outside in the yard with the little one, in my head, I used to be like, well, I have to do this, this, and this. I'm going to run in there and do that. And I'm going to get the pot on and I'm going to get those noodles on. But if I just spend the 30 minutes, slow down, that is, for me, it's self-care for my nervous system. It's caring for the mother that I want to be, the woman that I want to be. So self-pleasure and slowing down is my answer.
Yeah, it just reminds me of when I was a kid. and I would, our parents would make us go outside, right? Like go outside. And I lived in a kind of rural area for a little while, and, and we would just go outside and we would be out there. And me and my brother would just sit in the grass and just be playing grass, doing nothing, probably looking at clovers, trying to find a 4-leaf clover, just, and that's how you describe that. That's what it reminds me of, just doing nothing. And it just took me back to that time where you're not distracted, and you're just observing, and you're just out there just doing nothing, and you're just admiring what's going on around you. And I think that oftentimes we're so distracted by all of the things, because even when I'm outside exercising, for instance, like if I'm on my bike or I'm taking a walk, I have my phone with me and I'm plugged in and I'm listening and I'm still engaged. So I can't say that I'm now admiring, because I have things going on. So it's
I just did a 1 week diet, like a diet. I'm doing the artist's way right now. So I did a 1 week of like trying not to consume TV, podcasts, media, social media, reading. You weren't allowed to read even. And so I realized I'm like a podcast junkie. So it was very difficult not to like throw my headphones on and go for that walk. Yeah. And you do notice the difference when you're not doing those things, when you're not plugged in. You're like, oh, I mean, I'm left alone with my thoughts now and my feelings, and the noticing of your surroundings is just so much more vibrant.
Yeah, just being in the car without the radio on, or like anything going on, you're definitely more aware of what's happening around you. So I can imagine not. And even when I'm working, I have my iPad over here, and it's just playing something. I'm not even watching it. It's just playing stuff on the side, just to have like that ambient distraction,
noise, sound.
Yeah. Okay, so where can everyone find you? Where are you online?
I am Wonderlove Coach at Wonderlove Coach on Instagram, and wonderlovecoaching.com is my website. Those are the two main places. Like I don't have a YouTube or a podcast yet, but I'm working up to like seeing where I want to be, where I want to be coming up. But those are the two places I can find me now.
What's your favorite online platform?
Oh, to consume?
No, like where are you spending your time online?
Oh yeah, Instagram. Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, and I appreciate you coming on. Thanks
for having me. Yeah, thank you, Rita.
And there you have it. I want to encourage you to remember that being a mom who runs her own business is not easy. We all struggle, but just keep moving forward, and don't forget to make time for yourself. As moms, we are usually the first thing to go to the bottom of the list. If your business is overwhelming you and you need real solutions, not just some sugar-coated suggestions, apply to work with me at ritasuzanne.com/apply.